Hi everyone. So by now you have finished reading the novella of Mice and Men by John Steinbeck, and you have written a diary entry for each chapter of the novella, wherein you impersonate one of the main characters, George. In order to prepare for the next steps in our work with this novella, class discussions, and a collaborative project with your peers, it's important to review 4 literary terms: setting, characterization, irony, and symbolism. Before I provide you with a definition of setting, what do you think this means? What is the setting or settings of the novella? So if you believe the setting is the time and place of a story, you are correct. And in the case of this novella, we have several. The story begins on the banks of the Salinas River and moves to the farm where George and Lenny find their work. Interestingly, the story concludes at the same place, in the same setting in terms of place, as it began, on the banks of the Salinas River. So here's another literary term. What do you think this one means? Irony. So irony, simply put, is the replacement of what we expect to happen with something unexpected. But that definition isn't entirely helpful. It's a bit vague. To really understand irony, it's helpful to look at 3 different types of irony. So 3 types of irony to consider are verbal, situational, and dramatic. Okay, so think about George and Lenny. Think about their adventures, their discussions with each other and other characters, and some of the odd situations they find themselves in, and some misunderstandings that happen. Those various events and experiences of these characters fall into different types of irony. Verbal, sometimes the irony is due to spoken word. Sometimes the irony is due simply to the setting, the circumstances they find themselves in. And sometimes the irony is only made aware to the reader. The characters in the novella are not aware of any irony. Let's think about the novel and come up with one example of an ironic moment, an ironic experience. I'll give you a couple hints to think about. Something to think about might be Lenny's mental shortcomings combined with his physical strength and the results of that pairing. Okay, here's your first task. I'd like you to look through the novella and identify one example that you believe represents an ironic moment. Identify that example by page number. If it's short enough, indicate the direct quote. If it's a longer example, such as a scene, an interaction between characters, you can paraphrase what happens. Be prepared to explain how the moment is ironic, if you're able to. Also identify the type of irony at play, verbal, situational, or dramatic. Okay, our next term is symbolism. What do you think symbolism means? If you thought about objects and objects standing for other things, then you're on the right track. Symbolism is the use of a symbol, which can be a person, a place, just about anything, to represent an idea or another object. As you're thinking about Of Mice and Men, I'd like to give you a couple hints, some things to think about that are symbols in this novella. What does a dead mouse symbolize to you in terms of this novel? How about the Salinas River? How about character names? What other symbols can you think of? Okay, so your next task is to identify 2 symbols from the novella. Identify the symbol and then explain what it represents. You might choose to refer to a specific passage or a page number in your explanation. For next class, I would like you to bring in your completed tasks and be prepared to discuss them with the class. You may use any app you choose for recording your answers, or pen and paper. Feel free to use the tool that works best for you. Simply be able to show your work is complete and be able to share it with the rest of us.